1. After many years of D&D and Pathfinder, I collected my own share of horror stories. This is one where I was a player. I got recruited to a 3.5 game many years ago, somewhere between the 9th and the 12th levels, so I apologize if I forget some details. During character creation, I was bouncing ideas off the DM about what I could play. I posted some character ideas like monk, fighter, and druid, and the DM asked me if I was making bad choices intentionally, before I pointed out I rarely play. It's also the time I was introduced to the tier list. After browsing through the tier list, I decided to make a cleric of Obed High, the neutral god of nature, for those wondering, focused on summoning. The DM told me that I should pick other spells since there's a necromancer in the party, a dread necromancer most likely, and they have a bunch of minions with them, and adding more would be stressful. That was the first red flag in hindsight, but I didn't see it that way back at the time. If you're going to allow minions, they shouldn't be restricted to one person, in my opinion. Whatever. I finally get to be a player, I said to myself. Game starts, and the party was in the middle of a dungeon, so the only hook available was that I was captured by the enemy and the party found me in a room. I had asked the DM about my gear before session start, but he said, "Don't worry about it, you'll find your gear later." Alright, cool. At least I'll have my healing spells. Not a competent pouch with me, stripped to bare essentials, but I should be plenty useful. I don't recall the party composition much, but I do remember there being a warblade that demolished the monsters, and the aforementioned necromancer who has some minions including an attached zombie. Each session would last about 3 hours with nothing but combat and little role-playing in between. I would ask the DM before each session if we're getting closer to getting some gear for me. The party had their share of swag, but at best he would give me some vague answer. The party got to be super useful while I did nothing most of each session, though admittedly I did roll a cleric, so high dex wasn't high on my priority list. I decided to leave after the third session after more of the same happened. To the DM's credit, he had a strict application process because he considered his current group first and foremost, and did send me a doc about the lore of the world, so at least I wasn't entirely oblivious to what was going on, and did discuss each application with his group before they finally picked me. It was just after that, being in the same dungeon for a total of 9 hours with hardly any developments, to the point of literally being driven to sleep. Vague answers about the role I'd play other than a headbolt, and the party didn't need healing most of the time, and trying to cultivate bonds with the party with little result. It just felt like I wasn't part of the group, and thought I had better things to do than sit around doing nothing. I realized that limiting my spells was not much of a red flag, and personally I wouldn't have made a big deal out of that, but if I could do literally anything else, I went back and read the messages after much digging to fact-check everything I said, and I remember my first suggestion being a dirge singer in mourning for his fiancée. It was an evil campaign. He then pointed out there was already a bard and necromancer, so then came my other suggestions in which he proceeded to ask me if I was intentionally making bad choices. In hindsight, I should have just asked him if he really needed another player after the first session, because with support, minions, and uber-strong frontliners taken care of, did they really need me? 2. I'm going to preface this by saying that part of the fault lies with me as the DM, and that we were using the "so you want to be a badass" system. Anyways, our story begins with the party returning from a sea voyage to recover their wagon that they had left in town. They needed the wagon to travel to a city where a plot NPC was for, plot reasons. The first go around, they get to the inn and hear that their wagon is missing, appropriated by the nearby nobles. Learning this, the party sets out for the nearby castle. On the way, they notice the market has very little food, and that people are complaining about shortages. They talk with the townsfolk and learn that the shipment of food by sea hadn't arrived, and that no one in town knew why. So the party continue to the castle, and found that the town guards were rioting outside. They also did not know what was going on and were suffering in the same way as the rest of the town. So the party used magic to teleport onto the roof of the castle to try to get in. However, they found that the door to the roof is locked. One of the fighters starts to suggest breaking down the door, and this is where it starts to go off the rails. But the wizard suggests that they should tackle the problem head-on. The wizard teleports the entire party to the city where the shipment got held up, and discovers that it has been held up from a plague. One of the boats in the port had affected nearly the entire port, and the entire area was quarantined as a result. Not knowing what to do about this, the party then teleported back to the castle, an act of switching locations rapidly that confused so much of the party that we ended the session there for the day. Given the confusion over that session, we then came back to our next session. We all were pretty mixed up about the previous game. As a result, one of the players suggested taking it from the top, and I agree. That was probably my biggest mistake. I returned the party to where they were, but I mixed up my event order. I put the scene where the party notices the people don't have a lot of food before the scene where they learn their plot-important wagon is missing. As a result, the player who suggested the rewind tries grilling nearby townsfolk for information. When the element that nobody in town seems to know what's going on comes up this time, they decide to split from the party to search for a very specific NPC, one which I had not indicated existed, but they assumed would, and got infuriated when I told them such an NPC would likely not have the information that they were looking for. This frustrated the player, who kept insisting that they would search for this NPC because they must have the information they needed. I got heated myself, and probably wrongly, said that they should probably get their own wagon before doing anything else in town, because breaking what happened in the very beginning of the last session felt like metagaming to me. They, as players, knew that their wagon wasn't there, but their characters wouldn't. It hadn't occurred to me yet that putting the two events out of order would plausibly cause the party to drop everything else that they were doing to help the town. The player got really mad at my mention of metagaming, interpreting it as it's metagaming to help starving people in-game, and quit the campaign on the spot. After some discussion, we just resumed the game from the point we'd left off before the rewind. The fighter broke down the door to the castle, and they managed to follow various plot points in a way that got food to the town and addressed the plague in the other. 3. It's always annoying when a player hides critical information from the party about something that affects them. Had that happen in a long-running game I was in, sorta still am. I stopped going to sessions, but the DM is a close friend, so I have a standing invite. Anyway, another friend of the DM, I didn't really know him, was introduced to D&D with this crazy gnomish sorcerer. He was crazy, gross, secretive, and generally undermined everything anyone else was doing with his antics. Also, he would emit an aura that caused every creature within 30 feet, I think, to fumble more easily. 1 to 2 at first, then 1 to 3, and so on as he leveled up. He never explained this. Occasionally, something weird would happen, and a giant goldfish would appear out of nowhere and start trying to kill him. These were not some silly little joke creatures either, they were full-on boss monsters. He would play as if he was terrified of these creatures, and if we killed them, he would collect their scales. No explanation, but clearly some backstory thing. No explanations of anything. Later, we met a brass dragon who was tied to his backstory. It, too, was secretive and pulled pranks on us. He played his character as either crazy or incredibly stupid, like Intelligence 5 stupid. So I treated him that way until I learned he was an intelligence caster. I think. The system is very homebrew. Anyway, he has an intelligence of 20. Once I learned this, I realized he was being a jerk on purpose and stopped trying to meet him halfway. Learned he was full-on magic genius in character, not metagaming. At one point, he saw that his funny antics weren't getting big gross-out reactions anymore and weren't making us uncomfortable enough, so he made an even crazier character. A creepy shaman who casts healing spells by vomiting on people. I decided to act like this character didn't exist and did everything in my power to avoid interacting with him in character. Eventually, he got bored of how we weren't shocked enough by his new character and went back to the old one. Slightly better, I guess. My character's personal quest ended really weirdly early in the campaign, and it wasn't logical for him to keep adventuring. He was questing for a relic to impress his girlfriend's family so he could marry her. So I made a different character whose quest was explicitly silly, and we wouldn't need to worry about. He was looking for something the party had already found, but didn't know it. But I just couldn't get invested again. So I played a few guest characters over the last couple years, generally dropping in for a couple of sessions at a time and stopping. Apparently his character has gotten better, not that I saw any indication of that, and the new party, he is the only original player left, seems to be getting along now. He is no longer afraid of the fish monsters, and he has made a full suit of armor from the scales that gives him huge bonuses. I still don't know anything about his backstory. He still makes far too many fart jokes. A couple months ago, we were thinking, me and the DM, to bring my original character back. We designed an adventure where the party would have to navigate my character's hideout and deal with a bunch of Home Alone traps and illusions to find the mysterious character I was disguised as. And then he would reveal himself to actually be their old friend. For context, the character is a kitsune gunslinger and illusionist with a penchant for disguise. His silly disguises have previously been a big hit. Unfortunately, upon reaching the house, his character just refused to go in. I think he realized it was going to be full of whisk saves and traps, that he would not be able to no-sell, and just refused to let anyone else have fun at his character's expense. While he himself made a character of humiliating and disturbing everyone else, so we skipped that. My character did get to return and play a bit, but this spark is just gone. I left again. I told my friend, the DM, that I just don't fit with the party very well. I've instead been feeding him plot and setting ideas. He is a decent person in real life. We don't especially get along, but we aren't antagonistic. Just his playstyle rubs me the wrong way. He always acts like he is Bugs Bunny and everyone else is Yosemite Sam. 4. I run, along with a few friends, a Vampire the Requiem Discord RP server. Around a few days ago, one player arrived and submitted a Dampier half-vampire character. Nothing wrong so far, so his character gets approved. He gets to do his first scene, where he interacts with the character of another staff member. Said character is a Deva, the sexy, seductive type of vampire, who is very liberated regarding her sexuality. The two meet in an Elysium, basically a safe zone for vampires, where they're supposed to interact peacefully. They discuss, and initially it seems to go fine, but then the Dampier player suddenly starts growing gradually more and more passive-aggressive, until he flat-out refers to the Deva character as a whore. Now, the player herself made it clear she didn't take it personally. It's just character stuff after all. But she decided the insult was enough to trigger a frenzy roll in her character, and failed. Now, players of either Requiem or Masquerade would know, but Frenzy is basically a crazy berserk state the vampire risks entering when they're afraid, angry, or starving. The way it works in Requiem is slightly more punishing than in Masquerade. Basically, you got to set a goal for your character in their feral state, and they focus on accomplishing said goal in the most brutal, primal way possible, along with a physical boost. She chooses retribution for the insult as her goal, and began trying to beat up the Dampier. The Dampier answered by pulling out a gun, in an Elysium, mind you, and shot in the air to attract security's attention, all while dodging the super angry vampire trying to beat him to a pulp. Now in Requiem, there are only 3 ways to end a frenzy without killing the vampire. You can 1. Get the vampire's touchstone, the person they care about, to talk them out of it, 2. Put them in torpor, the dormant state of vampires, or 3. give them what they want, in that case an apology. The Davis touchstone wasn't there, so option 1 wasn't available. Option 2 could be applied by the Elysium security by either staking or beating the Deva into submission, but all of this could have easily been resolved much faster and with less trouble if the Dampier just apologized to her. But he just wouldn't do it. When asked to, he gave rants about how you don't give what they want to children throwing a tantrum, and insisted she was the one in the wrong for disturbing the Elysium's peace, never mind that he was the one who provoked her. He also argued that any self-respecting vampire would understand that shouting a half-hearted apology just to end the frenzy is humiliating and unacceptable. I was planning to have the Davis staked, then as stern talked to by her superior, while the Dampier would be banned from the Elysium for a few weeks. But I didn't have to. Dampier's player just left the server without explanation, not even bothering to finish the scene or anything. We just shrugged it off and closed it before retconning it away for simplicity's sake. It's honestly far from being the worst horror story we've had on this server, and we'll probably just move on, but right now I am still unsure what that guy's deal was. Maybe he was just a troll? 5. Hi there, horror story lovers! Our group has been running Pathfinder 2e for a number of weeks and progressing through the Outlaws of Alkenstar adventure path. The group met through an LFG Discord and consists of the GM, my husband, 2 other players and myself. The campaign has been fun, although we have had to cancel multiple sessions due to the GM claiming to either not want to play or having something come up. The largest break in our sessions was 4 weeks due to this. The story begins with a new person speaking up in our Discord channel, asking us to provide him with details about our characters so he can create his. This came with some confusion as the GM had not notified nor anyone asked anyone else in the group whether this was okay. The Discord server that we use to organize our game appears to be a personal server that the GM uses to interact and play video games with his real-life friends. The server is a mess and allows anyone to type in any channel. This had been an issue when organizing our games, as people uninvolved would often begin unrelated discussions in our dedicated Outlaws of Alkenstar channel. The issue became worse when I remembered some of the comments I had witnessed this new person make in reference to things such as lying about his age when engaging with women and other minor strange things. I am the only woman in the server and did not engage with any channel besides the one provided for our game. Because of this, the mood of the server is akin to a boys' club, with women and wives often mentioned in the general chat. I don't think it was unreasonable for me to mentally mark this person as someone I should avoid contact with. Furthermore, this person had DM'd me multiple times looking to play games, but, tellingly, not my husband. Soon after the new player said he would be joining our game, I privately spoke with the GM because I wanted to protest the decision to add another player when our game is in progress and our characters have established stories with one another. Additionally, I cited my concerns about the player in question and how he attempted to slide into my DMs and was in general rather creepy. The GM's initial response was warm, and he pleaded me to reconsider my stance. He attempted to guilt me by saying I would force him to let down the player if I made him redact his invitation. I reminded him that we had not been offered a chance to discuss his joining, and that I may have been okay with it if there was communication. He repeated his point and refused to understand that he created this situation, not me. He asked me to provide evidence of his friend being creepy. I pasted screenshots of things he had said in general chat, and notified him that the person had DM'd me multiple times, but oddly not my husband. The GM responded, "Chill out, girl," and I was told I was overreacting. He then attempted to create a strange alibi in which the new person may not know I have a husband, which is irrelevant at all because we were discussing the person's general conduct on the server, as well as him DMing me, and only me, when we previously have not spoken. The GM said that the person in question's comments regarding me were just a joke and that I'm overreacting. Given the general mood of the server and the context to which these comments were said, this person absolutely was not joking. To make matters worse, the GM then said it would actually be 2 players joining our game, and that he had invited the second person due to their father dying. While I am sympathetic to the second person, I don't think jeopardizing the story of our game or the established mood of the table makes sense. I reiterated that none of this had been discussed. Here is where things get a little bit manipulative. The GM cited comments in our group from the day it was formed, in which we agreed that we didn't mind what the party size was. They attempted to reframe those comments as if it meant we were giving him free rein to add players to the game while it is in progress. This is absolutely not what the discussion was about. I think it is obvious to anyone who reads it that we were discussing the party size at the start of the game, and not the potential of adding players to the game. My correction of this was ignored, as the GM repeatedly stated that we had consented to this and that no one cares. I responded to say that I care and received no response for the rest of the night. The next day, my husband chose to message him with intent to rectify the situation. Our session was planned for that evening and was currently on course to be very awkward when the new players show up. By this point, the GM clearly no longer cared, and quipped that I was personally attacking his friend, and that he had done literally nothing wrong. My husband reiterated the fundamental points that the group was not offered the chance to discuss this. The guy has said weird things about women, and that the alleged consent is being used out of context. The GM responded saying it was nice playing with us. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 20-Sided Dunce, Episode 3. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Please do roll the dice and hit the like button before you go. Help make sure this channel has maximum HP. Right, let's see. I think we have a birthday shout-out to do today. Yes, we do. Today's birthday shout-out goes to Miu. And this comes from your friend whose YouTube name is Holarosa. Miu, hope you're having a wonderful birthday today. I don't know if you're part of the community, but as this was asked for by a community member, you are allowed to celebrate your birthday for the full month and a little bit into January. So I'd say up to January 2nd. Make sure you're having a good time and you're treating yourself with lots of cake and pie and cake pies and some sort of drinks. Whether you're into alcohol, whatever you prefer, it's just refreshing drinks all around, yes? And before we go, I'd like to sing happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Miu. Happy birthday to you. Okay, let's see. Let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what are some local Christmas treats that they're very popular in your country that you sound odd when you describe them to other people, but they're so delicious and you think everyone should try them? I'm going to say mince pies in the UK. You've heard me talk about them before, which is basically it's a sweet pastry filled with fruit and stuff. And it's very, very yummy. I only eat them at Christmas. You can possibly get them year-round, I don't really know. But I only eat them at Christmas time and only in December. Maybe start in January if they're being sold off. You know how much I love my sweet things, so please do recommend some that I could possibly try to track down. Or maybe it's a simple recipe I could make them. I've been getting back into baking more lately. I look very much forward to reading your suggestions below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. Rest my voice. I've recorded 36 stories in the past 3 days. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.